welcome back to TALLAROOK. Today we're going to tackle a couple of the harder tracks and finish off the series of just this bit of a look around TALLAROOK. You know, it's not everything, but it's just got some of the highlights of the things you can see on a day out in TALLAROOK. Now, one of the things I have changed, because it's come into summer now, is I've put a set of all-terrain tyres on, and I've never tried the Bridgestone all-terrains out, and these are off their takeoff tyres. They're off 76 series, I think it is, Troopies, and I'm going to try these out and see how they go. And I'll just grab the camera. They're a great tyre. They're incredible handle on the road because they're such a soft compound. They really hang on. It's quite surprising just how well these things handle on the road. But they've got quite a square edge as opposed to the Dunlops that are the takeoff tyres off the 76 or the 79s, which is probably a bit more road. I just don't like that square edge, especially when you're coming up on rocks and stuff. It can be a problem on the edges trying to get grip. But we'll see how we go. We're definitely going to test these things out. And that's obviously the Michelin ZXLs, which these things are the bee's knees or the duck's guts, whichever way you want to look at it. They're a NATO tyre, and they were available for civilian use. They were actually standard fitting on Land Rover Defenders, but they're a heavy case and they're a serious four-wheel drive tyre. And they were primarily designed to run around in, you know, heavy fragmented areas, battle zones and that sort of thing. So they've got a really good case on them, yet they're still quite pliable on rocks and all that sort of thing. Man, they handle quite good on road, which is quite surprising for an aggressive tyre like that. But anyway, here we go with the bridgies. Let's see how good these things are. I'm just going to air down now. I'll set up the drone and then we'll take off. And George's Road, it's pretty uneventful. This first section here, it doesn't start climbing for probably, I don't know, a kilometre or something like that. But then it climbs up a little bit until you get back onto Jenkins Road. There's a couple of heavily eroded sections on some of the climbs. You got some granite sticking out, and you know, it's pretty simple stuff. But you could get held up, you know, without a difflock, and if it was raining. The good part about George's Road is it's pretty much granitic sand the whole way through. There's no red clay in it. Like when you get over the steep track, there's a lot of red clay in it and it gets quite slippery. That Central Victorian red clay, which is notorious, very, very slippery stuff. And we're about to encounter some red clay over at steep track. And it had been raining probably 6 hours of the last 24, and you can see in the puddles here on George's track. But the surface was relatively dry, but it didn't take much to break through onto the slippery stuff. And it was a real test for these bridgies because they're very road biased, these all-terrains. But they fared pretty well, and you'll see coming up in the video that's how well they've done, because that red clay is just like being on ice when it's wet. And you can see here the red clay starting to turn up in the track as we get higher.
See those bridges there.
And you can see here they've got some red clay in them at the moment, and it's quite slippery at this point, and it's having no trouble pulling up on these granite rocks without slipping. And you can see the gradient that we're on at the moment. So they're doing quite well really for how road biased the tyres are.
Okay, we're just going to flick around the corner here to steep track.
And we're coming up to the entrance to steep track here. The signpost missing. It doesn't actually say steep track, but this is it. And the gate is open. I just checked the signs before I entered, and it's definitely within the seasonal opening. So we're off and checking it out. So I didn't find out until I got to the bottom of steep track where it comes into a T intersection. That track is actually permanently closed. So it's quite unusual for the track to be open and it just comes to a dead end and you need to turn around and come back. But I went both ways just I didn't realise it was closed and on the T intersection, and I went both ways and it's definitely closed. Having worked my way down to concrete barriers at both ends of it. And then this is the point where it starts to really drop away here, and you can get an idea even with the camera outside the car here how steep this is. doesn't do this justice, at the other side of this big granite here is a steep drop off, and you can see when I take the car over the edge of it that when the car goes down, the bull bar nearly hits the ground at the bottom. The bull bar I've got on the Discovery, I've custom made it, and it's tucked nicely up in the front, so to get it to run that close to the ground dropping off there just shows you how steep that is off the front of this rock. And you can see coming up at this section here when I get out to have a bit of a look at all the different tracks that come up the side of the hill here. Over the years, some have been disused and new ones have been cut in. So it's a bit of a maze here. Now, a lot of the times I'll just drive over something like this, but because it's a little bit damp, I've got these all-terrains on, they're a bit untested, and it's slippery. What will happen is that I'll go to drive on it, and the car will slide off towards the right there, and this other big rut that's down there. So it's just not worth it. It's better to just get out and move it. Because that's a real trap for new players, that one, getting on the fresh timber with slippery tyres, and you just steer off down the length of the timber because the tyres won't grip to go over it. They'll just slide down the length of it. And another thing is that I don't normally show a lot of it, is that I do get out a fair bit, if things are a little bit sketchy or touch and go, because it's better to get out and walk it and just to have a good look at your surroundings rather than just drive on and end up on the lid, which is how most people do end up on their lid. They'll just drive it, be a bit lazy, get out and drive it, and something will come up and they'll turn the car over.
What's not on the camera here is this is a little bit steep. I'm going to come back up with the drone.
And the thing is, I'm out here by myself. There's no rescue team coming to help me if I get stuck. So I definitely like to plan things out and have a good look rather than get into trouble. And you can guarantee trouble's around every bend.
Okay, this looks like a bypass track over here. Oh yeah, okay. It bypasses. It goes right around the whole lot. So let's just have a look over here first.
And have a look at that red clay. This is real interesting coming back up.
Okay. We've got a big step off there. The rest of this doesn't look too bad. Just remembering, we're on the all-terrains here, and we're heading downhill.
That was the thought process there, going, heading uphill is going to be a real issue. It looks dry just on the surface, but because it had been raining the day before, it is definitely wet under there.
Nice and close in there.
And this is all great fun in the Disco. They're just such a capable vehicle. I mean, I had a short wheelbase Defender with 36 and 35 and 36 inch tyres for like 20 odd years, and you could, it was locked front and rear. There was just nothing you couldn't climb. There was nothing you couldn't do. And that, it's great building the vehicle up and you get the vehicle to such a stage and all that sort of thing, but you head bush and nothing's an issue anymore, nothing's a challenge. It's great heading down in a vehicle and heading back up in something that's got these really road orientated all-terrains on, and they're only 750 16s, or the equivalent. And I'm going to be heading up here. It's not like heading up here, and it's only got one difflock in the rear, the old Disco, and we're only got a 50mm lift. And heading back up, there's no 37s, there's no twin locked, and while she's wet and slippery, it's a real challenge coming back up. And it makes for a real enjoyable day. And as I always say to people, you're best off busting out the skills rather than busting out the bills. It's a lot more fun. Coming back up, this is definitely going to be a challenge. And here you've got the ruts are starting to get quite deep, and there's a part of this where the centre of the diff just rides on the centre of the track. So coming back up, it's going to be quite tricky. I don't know if anyone's noticed all the trees with the winch cable marks where they've all been ringbacked from. They've probably been big bangers with all the gear that have been winching up this as well, with a lot more gear than the Disco on board, that's for sure. They'll be at least twin locked, and the tyres will be over 35 or over, I'd say. Yeah, there's another tree there. You can just see them; they're all the way up. But we're gonna head back up in the old Disco, and we're gonna see how we go. We're gonna use the Disco's superpower: small, light, and agile.
Bits of broken car. You probably noticed the bits of broken car coming down everywhere. And probably never going to be able to see how steep that is. But it's steepish. And coming back up this today with the all-terrains on it will be interesting. And you can see we were riding down there in the centre of the diff. Just coming back down to this step here. This is quite a little tester here. We'll go the other way, okay? Let's go straight in. Okay, just give us a little bit of a look at these rocks here. One of the pains of getting in and out when you're filming, or just getting in and out in general, is when you get back into the car, you just don't have a good feel for where you are actually on the ground. So sometimes you just got to take a bit of a run back and have a look again, rather than just darting off. I had a good one recently where I just took off and just landed in a big water race, and then the car just completely flipped over onto its side, and it was touch and go. I was just leaned back and put it into reverse, and I was just hoping that the car would go down because it was leaning over, like it was, the back wheel was probably 1.5 meters off the ground, and it was steep downhill. And I was just hoping that when I put it in reverse that it'd go down and not up and over. And luckily it went down, but it was touch and go, that's for sure. I'm not sure which way to go here. So this is the T intersection, and it's dead end both ways, so I found out. But most people would know where this dead end comes out. There used to be a bridge there, and now that's just got all concrete blocks at the bottom of the hill. Motorbikes usually, there's a motorbike track straight up, but it's closed to vehicles. And a lot of work went into these side steps being super strong so you could slide along them like this and still be able to get out and open the doors. Now I must apologise for this. This is just another video. There's going to be another one after this because I couldn't wrap it all up in this last video. By the time I go back up steep track and then head over to flat rock track, which I was going to do, which I promised to you last time, there was just too long a video to upload, so we're going to have to do another. But the last one will be worth the wait. These last two tracks are really full on. In a vehicle on skinny all-terrains with one locker. So see you next time for the last video in the series.